Hello, everybody. My name is Romania Black, and we are starting a new series, Moriarty the Patriot. So, just a little thing of why we're doing this now. My Hero Academia is ending, and I've also been reviewing on my Patreon a series called Real by the mangaka Inoue. And it's been a really fun series. I've really enjoyed it, but I've reached the ending point. The series is ongoing. I've made it to volume 14, and volume 15 is supposed to come out in December. So I've reached the end of the manga, and I've not posted the manga here on YouTube because of copyright reasons. So if you want to go read that series, it's on Patreon, or I've been posting links to it on Twitter as well. So I wanted to do an anime series. I wanted to take a break from reading manga and go back and do a new anime series. And so I did a poll on Patreon, and fellow patrons decided they wanted to see me do a mystery crime thriller, which I'm all about mystery, I'm all about crime, and I'm all about thrillers. So the series they voted on was Moriarty the Patriot. So I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, so I'm pretty excited about this. The fact that it's from Moriarty's perspective, who is Sherlock Holmes's arch-nemesis, is fascinating to me. I don't understand the Patriot bit, so that part's going to be interesting to see how that all ties in. But I've heard this series is really good. It just came out, and they just did the second season, so I'm really excited to start it. I've had a lot of people request it, and I'm like, finally, we're going to get to see it. So thank you, fellow patrons, for voting for this series. After this series, patrons will be voting for another series to replace it, so you can go be a part of that on Patreon. But that's my spiel. Anyway, I'm excited for Moriarty the Patriot. It should be a fun time. So I don't know anything about these series. I'm going in blind. I have not watched this show at all. I know nothing about it. I know there's a manga that's with it. I don't know which came first, the manga or the anime. As always with my series, if I'm going in blind, please no spoilers, because I like being surprised as I watch. However, down in the comments below, if you do want to comment with a spoiler, just tag it and say, Romania, do not read until after such and such episode. And I won't. So I do like giving feedback on everybody's comments and commenting back, because I like talking about these shows with you all. So I'm pretty excited. I've heard this has an all-star cast of voice actors. I've heard there's so many good voice actors. The only thing I know that's kind of spoilery about the show, but I don't know what it is that I remember on Twitter everybody being like, Kuro Daddy. There's apparently a character that looks like Kuro from Haikyuu, but is like a daddy type trope. So I'm curious when we get to that. I'm very curious. So yeah, that's the only spoilery thing I know, is that there's some character that looks like Kuro that will show up at some point, and he's a daddy. That's all I know. But as always, I'm really excited to start these shows with y'all. It's going to be fun taking a little break from reading manga and doing this instead. It's going to be pretty good. So I'm excited. Like I said, love Sherlock Holmes, so it'll be neat to see how this all ties in, especially with it being from Moriarty's perspective. But with that being said, I hope you all enjoy this reaction. Let's dive in. I'm pretty excited to do episode 1, The Earl's Crime. Very interesting. I am going to be watching the Japanese sub, because I've heard the Japanese voice acting cast is amazing for this show. So that's what I'm watching. But we are going to start this reaction here, y'all. Here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. That's all I can think about this whole episode. Oh, okay. All right. I am super intrigued. I am super intrigued by the show, because it is showing the other side of the coin with Moriarty's version as the crime consultant, not the detective, not the police, the crime consultant, and working with old Albert here. I really like Albert's design. Like the green, green's one of my favorite colors. So anytime there's like green, a character that has a green motif, I'm like, yes. And like the green eyes, the green scarf, like Albert's design is really cool. I thought it was Sherlock at first, and then I was like, no, that's not Sherlock. Sherlock has blue eyes, of course, because Moriarty has red eyes. I like that we have a brother angle to this too. So we have William and Louis, or Louis, I'm gonna call him Louis, as the brothers in this together. We're in cahoots with Albert. So as crime consultant, basically it's like a dark detective. It's like Moriarty is solving crimes like Sherlock, solving crimes, like quenching his thirst to solve mysteries. But at the end of the day, Moriarty has a very different perspective about society and how crime should be handled. And so I like that he tells the father, he's like, what you were about to do would be unfortunately labeled as a crime, when it's just revenge. It's just an eye for an eye philosophy, right? But it almost seems like Moriarty's whole agenda is spreading chaos and violence in a sense. I'm curious, the preview, I won't watch previews for this series because I don't like being spoiled to the previews, but it came right after the after credits, and I've been told that the next episode has an after credit scene too, and then after that, the only thing I know is the next two after that do not. So I'll try not to watch the preview, but it looks like we'll get into a little bit more of Moriarty's childhood, him and his brother, and maybe they've known the Earl since they were kids, and so that will be very interesting. I like that we're getting, because in Sherlock Holmes, you get Sherlock's perspective and Moriarty is the antagonist, so we don't ever really get Moriarty's perspective unless Sherlock Holmes is there, right? Because they are foils for each other. But in this so far, we're getting to see what Moriarty does behind the scenes, and it's very fascinating, very similar kind of deduction methods that Sherlock uses, but Moriarty, I like him and his brother, their banter back and forth. It's very interesting. I honestly thought at the beginning of this, I thought the dad was suspicious. I thought maybe the dad was the killer, but then I'm like, why would he kill his own son? Because he had the button. But the dad was just really upset that his son died. And of course, they tie back to the idea that the person who killed him and the other boys was just an aristocrat who saw these young boys and targeted them specifically. I like the beginning here. We have New York City in 1911, so I'm assuming that the rest of the story takes place back in the 1800s in the past. And I like that we have this general here, Earl. His name is Earl, this boy. And Earl's trying to read the Sherlock Holmes book, and he takes it away. And when he cuts to the thing of Moriarty, the caricature looks like what you think of Moriarty, like the old professor. Not this young, blonde, debonair man at all. It's very funny. The final problem, which is the final story with Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, trying to solve it. I like that a cop says that I don't find detective stories to be to my liking. And it's in English. Like you see the book in English. The Tale of the Man Who Confounded Even the Great Detective Sherlock Holmes. And I like that we're getting it from his perspective. And I like that it fades from this like old traditional English drawing to this anime man with blonde hair and red eyes. It's like not what you expected. The Lord of Crime. The unfortunate things that they call crimes. So, man, the symbolism, the animation is really cool in this. It's very distinct. I like the animation of it. The look of every character is very distinct, but there's like a little blend of CGI into it and the use of color, getting like the red tones and everything. It kind of has, I know Studio IG is doing this. It has the OP has a very Bungo Stray Dogs feel to it. A very Bungo Stray Dogs feel, especially when he leaps off the building. I'm like, you're basically like Dazai. But interesting. And then we don't get to see it. The OP, I'm very curious to know, like analyzing it and the symbolism behind it as we go per episode. I'm assuming that they do like cores, like the first 12 episodes will have this OP. So interesting. But yeah, the use of red tones and the idea of the boy getting murdered. And then we have this humble abode. I like this conversation between William and Louis right off the bat. What does he say? The brother says, Moriarty says it's human to think this could not be the work of men. It's hard to believe that a human being could do such things. And I like that duality. Louis says it's hard to believe a human could do such things. And then Moriarty says, well, it's human to think that anybody but man could do this. So like man doesn't think that they're at that level to do such atrocities, but they are. I'm so curious, this dark detective concept. I love it. I really, really like it. And I like Louis, the distinct brother that helps along. Very curious, but I like the modes of deduction throughout this. And then it just felt like a Sherlock Holmes story, except at the end of the day, Watson and Sherlock turn in the bad guy and they're like, everything was wholesome and done right. And here Moriarty's like, okay, Dad, I've got you, you're a culprit. You do what you want. And he stabs him to death. And they just leave him in the crypt. And then at the end of it all, he's like, well, it's the perfect crime because it just never showed up in the papers. So nobody knows there was an incident to begin with. It's very, very cool. I really like it. I like Albert's design. I'm curious to know, since this is about Moriarty, it seems like Sherlock would be somebody that's not going to come up for a while, right? even though he's in the OP, I'm like, they're gonna wait a couple episodes before we see Sherlock, right? We're gonna have to wait a little bit. But I was very curious throughout this entire episode what Moriarty actually did. I was like, what is his whole profession? I'm like, he's not a detective, he's not with the police, but the crime consultant. So basically, if there's been a crime in the area, you can hire Moriarty, dirty deeds done dirt cheap style, and he'll figure out the crime and then let you get your revenge. So he's kind of like, he's just working outside the law. Like Sherlock Holmes worked with the police and worked with Scotland Yard and everything and was coordinating with the government. But Moriarty is acting like an independent agent outside of the government. So, and then looking back on this episode, seeing the dad find the button, it was the briefcase the kid had when he was running away. So, yeah. And the thing of it is, though, that when the dad finally kills the man, the Earl, when he finally kills him, when he steps out of the tomb, he doesn't look like he's, there's always the moral argument that even if you kill someone, it's not going to bring you satisfaction. The kid's still going to be dead, and it's not going to satisfy or quench that thirst. And it seems from the outside at the epilogue that the dad is okay, because he has a picture of the button and everything, that he's okay. But then when he sees the Earl, it kind of like that flicker there where he realizes what he did, like simmers back in. So it's like, it's still there. You can't just forget about it. But I like Albert seems very concerned because the dad is like, oh, well, I wouldn't expect, an Earl to come to a commoner's funeral. And Albert seems kind of offended by that. So I'm very curious to know the circumstances of Albert being an Earl and how far into aristocracy are Moriarty, are William and Louis. Very, very curious about that. But yeah, this was a really cool standalone story. I like that the whole point of it was to set up different things. It's to set up the deduction powers of Moriarty. It's to set up him and his brother working together, the brother helping out. It's to set up exactly what his whole profession is as the crime consultant, what he's capable of. And then also setting up the fact that Moriarty has a very, very distinct perception about society and how it views crime. And I wanted to go back to that last conversation with the dad at the end when he confronts the father and gives him the opportunity to do, and he's like, forgive these somewhat rough methods we've used to get you to come here, and brings him back to the place where the boy was killed. There's a gentleman here who insists on seeing you alone. And just the shot, like the way that they do eyes in this show, like Moriarty's eyes are that big red, but the father's eyes and the other guys and the Earl's eyes are that like crystal ice cold blue. It's so cool. And then, you could tell that when Albert saw him, that the dad just wanted to get revenge and pay back for his son's death. And then he's asking Moriarty if he can grant his wish. Sir William. And then I love what he says here. He's like, Mr. Eden, what you are proposing to do is unfortunately categorized by this twisted world as a crime. Like saying there's nothing wrong with an eye for an eye, is what he's saying. Does your resolve remain unchanged? And it doesn't. He's like, no. It's almost like he's not going to get any peace until something happens. But here's the thing. The guy there, I guess that was the guy helping him, was the accomplice helping him. Yeah. Man. So this whole episode setting up the idea of the crime consultant, setting up Moriarty's personality, setting up him and his brother's relationship, setting up how they do business, getting Albert involved in this. It's just setting up our world in this nice, neat little standalone story and then leaving it open for us to question what's going to happen next. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm very curious to hear the Sherlock story from the arch-nemesis's perspective. Because every Sherlock Holmes story you see is Sherlock Holmes is always the protagonist, the main character. And we don't get to see, and I love that the ties on both of them in that scene are red between the dad and Moriarty. But we don't often get to see the perspective of the antagonist, and we are in this. And so I'm very much about that. Very much. And I like how he's like, you need to kill him by the time I smoke the cigarette. It's like, wow. Really cool episode. I'm intrigued. I like it. I'm curious to know where we're going to go to from here. But yeah, that was awesome. So, a good first episode. There's not much else to talk about, I feel, yet. But with this show, I feel like the way it's already using like colors and stuff as symbolism and everything in the one-liners from Moriarty, it sounds like it's going to be a fun time. So, with that being said, yeah, Moriarty seems not disturbed at all by the fact that this man just slaughtered this other guy. Cool beans. So, in any case, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, but I am excited to see where this show takes us. So, yeah, we'll go from here. So, in the meantime, as always, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next week with episode 2 of Moriarty the Patriot. Bye.